So David spelled out for you sort of the preamble of one reason why we built a digital twin of Orlando. And that is that we have this perception of being only about tourism and hospitality. But the reality of that is the city's much more. And so how do you demonstrate that? We also have this challenge, which is if any one of you were looking to build a team in this space and you visited with us and say you flew in from Houston or New York and you landed at Orlando International, took an Uber to our office and you arrive, we would typically kill you with a 75 slide PowerPoint presentation, okay? As would every other city that is trying to capture that project. We wanted to change that. So you would come in for 24, 36 hours, and we'd try to give you every reason why you'd want to build or do that project in Orlando. The problem is Central Florida is really big. And part of our story, the same time 50 years ago when Disney was getting started and opening their first park, the space program was launching off of the Space Coast, which is from where we sit today, you could be in the water in about 45 minutes. So it's very close. It's part of this market. And so explaining all of these assets, you have Neo City that's doing semiconductor manufacturing. You got downtown Orlando in the middle, kind of to the north. You've got Deloitte and ADP, Verizon, a lot of corporate regional offices. Out to the east, you have UCF, the 5th largest research park, the 2nd largest university in America. Lake Nona down by the airport, Medical City. You have the National Simulation Center for the VA there. You've got Nemours. You've got all of these medical facilities. So we don't have time to drive people around. Plus, you might get stuck in traffic. It just wouldn't be a good experience for the visitor. So we had this problem of how do we give people an understanding of an entire market in a much more visual way. So these are the components. So we took essentially the 3D model of the region based on budgeting. We had to choose which parts of the region we wanted to put in high fidelity and which ones we were satisfied with more of an overview. So we made those selections. There's a lot of public data that we use, but then there's also proprietary data. There's data we pull from government. So in our digital twin, as far as sort of that digital content overlay over the 3D model, you're looking at about 80 different sources that we pull from and now are in the back end and give us the ability to see the region in all of these different dimensions instead of dragging somebody through a PowerPoint slide. Would you mind starting this quick video? So this is if you came into our office, this is what you would see. So a little over a year ago, we partnered with Unity on this project. We're a private nonprofit organization. We're a $10 million company. We've got 45 people on staff. We're not the most technically sophisticated organization in this room. However, we had a very clear sort of challenge, and we wanted to kind of use this as a showcase of Orlando tech. So this project through Unity was largely built in Orlando. Orlando has the highest concentration of Unity developers in the country. So we're very proud that it's like an authentic representation built here. So I'm just gonna kind of run through a few pictures just so you can get a sense of if you were in our office and this is housing data of concentrations of where people live. This could be per capita income. This could be educational attainment levels. We could be showcasing for you there we go. You could see the infrastructure. So we could, on the tablet, pinch and zoom and be able to see, okay, this building is sitting here in Lake Nona. Here's proximity to the airport. Here's proximity to the major interstates. You could see current, obviously, the nice thing about this is current and future infrastructure networks. So as things are being built, that could be updated. Obviously, the screen's kind of interesting of how all of this is displayed and kind of give you a sort of a 3D feel on the bottom. Also using the background display as, overview of the larger geographical area. Also any video, thanks David, any sort of video, images, quotes, anyone we want to pop up to talk to you. And yes, before you ask, you can't play video games on this if that was of interest. That's the most common question I think we get. So this is maybe the best shot, but just as we go forward, so this is what we consider level one. It's a digital representation of physical assets. Okay, it's on our servers. The data is not yet real time, but to view 80 data sources, we could do in about 15, 20 minutes in a conversation standing around this display what would have taken, 6 months ago, would have taken us an hour, hour and a half, if we keep your attention for that long, to understand the market. So just from a learning standpoint and a visual representation, we're very proud of where we're at, and it's very functional for that use. We also, did this project in under a year. In fact, the development of the digital twin took about 3 months. We are also building out a new office space because of supply chain. That took a little longer than we thought, so that's why it took a year. But where are we going with this? This is cool and very useful for us and a good investment. And we can certainly, if you are visiting us, you're visiting Atlanta, you're visiting Raleigh, and you're visiting Tampa, there's gonna be a little extra something special about your experience in Orlando with this market overview. Now, where we go from here. So the idea is, I'm not gonna call it an open source digital twin. We're gonna selectively make it an open source digital twin. And what I mean by that is, we're in conversations with utilities, with telecom companies, with local governments, airports, developers, and others on how they could build on top of this. So essentially, we've accelerated the timeline of development of a digital twin in Orlando. And now all those other users can now build on top and already have the underlying digital twin and just hone in on, say, the airport, or say the Lake Nona area. It's one landowner. The developer there could show current and future. And obviously, we've talked to sort of utility companies, our transit system here, about what if the bus system was electrified? What demand would that put on our utilities, and what infrastructure changes? Many of you know we recently had a hurricane that came in through Southwest Florida and came up through Orlando. And in spots in Orlando, there was flooding. So from a municipality standpoint, if you have existing sensors on all the stormwater management system, you could track in real time the impacts of the storm, understand where your blockages may be occurring, dispatch service to those spots, and sort of use that to manage that situation in real time. So there's all of these use cases for the technology. And because we're a private nonprofit, we're not a government, we have the ability to partner with anybody on future development of this. So ideally, next year we're standing up here and we're talking about the first 5 partners that have built on top. And then the next year we're talking about the next 10 partners. And we think that obviously this is scalable. There's a lot of opportunity here as sort of this digital twin technology becomes better understood. We think this is probably a simple use case for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, but then the capabilities that this gives us going forward, every time somebody comes into our offices and they go through this presentation, they ask a question or come up with an idea we haven't heard before. And so there's pretty exciting just to see where this may go in the future. But even if it is a dud on many of those conversations, it's still a hell of a way to wrap your mind around a large geographical area with a lot of data sources built in a very digestible way. I think that's it.